Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Will Zambrano. I'm actually putting this mini video together. As I mentioned during the first meetup that we had for the Cisco's Networkers meetup group, I was actually trying to put together um, I was trying to put together a video of how to do an out of the box ASA 5505 setup that was part of actually our agenda. Um, as you can see here that we had earlier, but because of time and because of my new work schedule, it's a little hard to do these meetups and have them as long as I like them. So I kind of thought to myself, why not, why not make these videos when I'm available and post them on YouTube? And this way, when it comes time for the real meetup, we actually have one this Friday. This way, it's I can kind of cut a lot of this stuff out and make the meetup a little bit shorter and a little bit more to the point. So with that, anybody who's actually viewing this video off of YouTube, as I mentioned, my name is Will Zambrano. A little bit about myself here. If you haven't checked out our meetup page, definitely do go meetup.com/Cisco-networkers. It's one of our meetup pages where we have our calendars and all like the upcoming meetups that are coming up. So definitely check that out. Also, my contact info down here. If you guys want to shoot me an email or shoot me a Skype or shoot me a text. So, just without further ado, let me jump down to what I wanted to cover during our meetup, but I kind of ran out of time. Is out of the box installation. So, I'm assuming at this point you guys already have a console cable into your ASA 5505. I'm assuming it's code 83 or better. That's what we're focusing, at least with the new CCNA security. And I actually got one right here. So I got a console cable already in here, as you can see. I'm actually doing this uncut, unscripted. I already have, wrong way. I already actually have some information on this guy already. So if I do show run, I do have some info on here. So I will lose connectivity when I do an erase. Actually, not erase. Yeah, I think it's like factory. What is it? Restore or config factory. Here we go. So we use this command here. It's kind of like the equivalent of a like erase startup in our iOS. So I'm going to go ahead and. Oh, I'm nervous. Go ahead and do that. And it starts clearing things out. Hit the space bar, help it along. Now this kind of sucks. This is my production 5505, so I actually kind of have to get this working before I leave today, or else I have no internet at home. So now if I do a show run, and notice I could do a show run from any mode. It's not like iOS where you have to do the do command. Bare bones. There's nothing on here. This is literally the factory defaults. There's nothing on here. If I do my show into IPB or show interface IP brief, I got nothing except for the default values. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm assuming you guys already have this out of the box. You got your console cable in there, you get your power cable plugged into the power slot. I'm actually going to configure this all from the CLI right now. And one of the first things that you want to do is define your inside and outside interfaces, and which one's going to be your inside and outside interface. In my case, and I'm actually looking at mine right now, my 00 is going to be my outside interface. And I got 01 and 02. I think I had, well, yeah, I do. I have some inside my PCs in here. So you can see the status is up and up for these. And these are the ones I'm not really doing anything with. You can see they're down, down. So the concept with 5505s over the 5510s, 20s, etc., we don't actually apply IP addresses to the interfaces. We applied the IP addresses to a VLAN, and in turn, we apply that VLAN to an interface. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do that right now. So I'll do int VLAN, and is it best practice? No, but in a production you don't want to do this, but this is my own home ASA, so I don't mind. I'll give it a name if question mark, and you can give it a name. Now you can name this whatever you want. This is whatever your inside network is. 99% of the time I've seen your inside network called inside. Cisco documentation has it set up that way, and I think, let me see, I think every company I've been to calls it inside. I mean, if you want to be creative, you can, but just for the sake of argument, just to make it easy, just call it inside. So we called it inside. Next step that you want to do under this VLAN interface is the security level. So ASAs have a concept of security levels. Junipers have zones, and I forget what Checkpoint has them, but basically this is the idea of the higher the number, the more trusted. The lower the number, the least or less trusted. So in this case, security level 100, it's like, you can think of it as like 100% trustful. Like, I 100% believe in this interface. Anything that comes out of here, I trust. The lower the number, like say when we get to the outside, I'll give it a security level of 0. So that's my least trusted. I 0% trust in this guy, or this network, or whatever is behind this VLAN. And yeah, and that's, and I'll also put my IP address as I mentioned before. 192.168. I'll do 10.1, and I'll just give it a /24. Oh yeah, I gotta get rid of that DHE people. That's the default that's in there. So do a show run DHCPD, and ASAs, you gotta put a D at the end. So I'm just gonna kill this. Kill this line of config. I'll say no to that. And let me go back to my VLAN 1. I'll pop in the IP address again. Yeah. Now it should take, kind of sitting there for bits. You'll notice that when it does that with the ASAs, hangs there for a little bit. Okay, so I'm in. So I got that set up. So if I do a show run, just to see what I have, actually out of the box by default, 00 is already in VLAN 2. So right now that's actually being set up. Actually, I have name if outside. Looks like this was done for me already, because as you guys just saw, I did a factory reset on this guy. So name if outside, security level 100, IP address, and this here is key. So we configured this here, but it looks like the factory configuration did this part for us already. And while I do that, let me make sure what version I have. Okay, I got version 8.4. So out of the box, we'll have our two interfaces, VLAN 1, VLAN 2. VLAN 2, as I mentioned before, is going to be our outside. So you see here, name if outside, security level 100, security level 0. So I'm trusting this the least. And unlike the last command where I actually put in a hardcore IP address, chances are, if you're watching this video, you're probably have a residential internet. So you probably don't have the luxury of having a couple public IPs lying around. So in my case, I don't. So what I have to do is get an IP address from my provider. This is what this is basically doing, saying pull an IP address from the provider. Which if you had your regular you know, Verizon, Cablevision, Time Warner modem sitting in there, it will be pulling that public that IP. And this command here, set route, is basically going to almost be creating a default. It's going to be creating a default route on your ASA to point to the whatever like the IP of the other end is of the ASA. So if I do a show route, and that's not in here yet. But actually, I'm curious. If we ping, I don't know if it'll. Yeah, not yet. Okay, so we still have to do a couple more things in here. But yeah, that's one of the key commands in here that we need to do. It's like I mentioned, it's almost like kind of put like a default gateway on the ASA. So that part's done. We define our inside and outside interfaces. Check. Now, you also want to go ahead and define object networks, or I think I had this backwards, network objects. So that's basically a way that we can kind of think of it like almost like creating like a folder or a container where you're going to say that for, instead of saying like, you know, IP address subnet 192.168.10.0/24, in this case, as you kind of saw with our, where are we? Our int VLANs, ASAs like to name things. We have to name our subnet or our range or our host. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Object network question mark. It's going to ask for a word. I'm going to call mine inside subnet. You'll see why in a second why we need to do this. At least bare minimums, we got to define what our inside network is. If I hit question mark, I can see here I can specify that one host. I could do NAT, which I'll do in a second. I can do a range or a particular subnet. So in this case, I want to do a subnet, and I want to specify. I'm going to do question mark. I can specify my. Actually no, I don't think it needs a subnet mask. Oh yeah, it does. Okay. Okay. And also want to do. I mean, it's kind of down here. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I also want to define NAT. And NAT, we're actually going to define it inside that object network. So do NAT question mark. This is kind of a little confusing looking. I don't go by this for the help. I just know that it's going to be 90% of the time I've always done inside outside question mark. Dynamic because I don't know what the public IP of that other end is. And I'll do interface. So it's going to say whatever that outside IP is, just use that as your inside outside interface IP. So I already know what my inside is, which is this guy right here. My inside subnet 192.168.10.0 because I called it name if inside. And for my outside interface, that's where I get my NAT commands. I don't know what it is because it's just dynamic using DHCP, so I pull here dynamic and whatever that interface IP is. That's it. NAT's pretty simple. Okay, so that's that. So we did the object network, at least bare minimum. Like I mentioned, you're going to go and want ahead and specify the inside subnet. Also, one thing that I like to do, and I've seen many deployments do, is I'll create an object group, and here you can specify certain protocol services. And this is something that I like to do to ping my ASA, so at least I know that I can get to it from the public internet. So also ICMP type, and I'll say allow ping, or even better, allow ICMP, more specific, question mark. So I want to go ahead and configure an ICMP object because I want to allow any my pings. And generally I want to do my echo reply. What else I want to do? My timestamps, time exceeded, trace routes, which are pretty helpful, unreachables, and I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you can do echo as well, but echo reply is usually like when I ping, I want you to be allow this ASA to reply back to that. So I'll do echo reply. Who else I said? Time exceeded. I said unreachable if I can't ping him for whatever reason. And trace route, I need to trace route to my ASA. Nice. So let's do a show run. This I can actually get rid of. I don't need this. Don't know why I put it in there as a default. Let's see, beacon object network. Let's see if this works. Here we go. So here we got my inside subnet. I got my object group, which is allowing the pings. And funny enough, I don't know why they do this, but the object network, even though we configured it under the same sub configuration mode, it's also showing to me down here that NAT command is in a different section. I'm not sure kind of why they did that. It's a little confusing. They kind of move it around, but technically it was down here where I'm highlighting that NAT interface, but they kind of split it. I'm guessing they want you to, I guess they want to do is to show you only the NAT section down here and only the IP information up here. Okay. Okay, so that's that. Define ACL for pings. We did that already, which is good. But kind of similar to like an access list almost. It's like just because we create this object group, it doesn't mean anything. We actually have to bind it to our outside interface. So let me go ahead and actually create that access list because we have to tie that together, that object group plus the access list to our interface. Okay, so I'll call it access list. I'll say inbound question mark. And I'm going to permit ICMP from any source because I don't know from where I'm coming from in the internet. And we'll do any destination. We'll just make it simple. And then here I can see object group. So I'm going to specify and use object group. And what did I say? Allow ping, was it? Allow ICMP. Okay, so I'm making that access list to permit anybody from anywhere. Filter or kind of run it against that access list or that object group that I made, which is the pings. And now we're going to actually apply it to an interface. So it was like access group in iOS. Same thing here. And we'll say specify inbound. And of course I want to come in inbound to my ASA. So I'll say in question mark interface. It's the only choice they give us. And I'm going to apply it to my outside interface or my VLAN 2 interface. Okay, so now I should be able to ping outside whatever IP I get. And speaking of, let me do a show IP. Fortunately, I'm not yet getting a public IP. You can notice here that the method is DHCP. When you actually do get an IP address, this pops up here as what the IP address is. Sometimes you gotta do a reboot, but we'll see. Okay, we did that. Next up, what we're gonna want to do is define HTTP, SSH, and Telnet on your ASA. So, of course, realistically, we can have our a console cable plugged into that ASA constantly. It would be nice if you could manage it using, SSH, Telnet, or HTTP if we want to eventually start using that ASDM, which is the GUI for the ASA. So kind of similar to the iOS. In order to do that, we'll say SSH. We'll say what networks you want to permit. So generally in a production environment, you're only going to want to put in at least outside IPs. So if you know a certain range that you're expecting people to come in from, you'll put in that range or that prefix in there. Generally, you don't want to put 000 like I'm doing right now. So basically everybody to come in from the inside and everybody to come in from the outside. Typically, you don't want to do that because that means anybody can get from anywhere. But like I said, this is a lab. I may be at a friend's house. I may be at a hotel or whatever. I don't mind if people try to get into that. So I don't have anything important on my network anyway. So this command will not take effect until the interface outside has been configured an IPv4 address, which is fine because it's, as we did our show IP command, nothing yet for our outside interface. Okay, so we did that. Telnet's the same deal. Instead of doing SSH, we'll say telnet. Same commands. I'll just hit these guys again. I'll say inside, outside. Nothing crazy there. Now for HTTP, it's a little bit different, but as I mentioned, similar to iOS, we'll do the HTTP command. What range or what source you're expecting these HTTP commands to come in from. In my case, like I said, I don't care. Any range. I'll do inside network and I'll do outside network. So at least people can try to pull up the ASDM from the ASA. And of course, one thing that actually is a little bit different with HTTP, you're going to want to actually turn the light switch on for this guy. So you want to enable it. So down here at the last, you see this server. enable HTTP server required to run the device manager or the ASDM, and I want to enable it. So let's take care of these three guys right here. And finally, you may or may not want to do this. I personally like to do this just in case I have a PC or laptop I plug in there and I don't feel like giving it a static IP. Generally, most machines will have static IPs on my network, but for that random laptop or whatever, I plug in there and just give it an IP. We can go ahead and I can actually check this right now. DHCPD, auto config outside. Alright, so let's just leave that there for now. That shouldn't make a difference here. We'll say DHCPD. You got to make sure they put that little D at the end for that to work. Address, so I'll say from, let's say 100 to, even better, 20. I mean, I don't have enough ports, so I'll say 10. I only got like 4 extra ports on that ASA, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. And I'll say service the inside. So anybody on that VLAN 1 will pull an IP address from that pool. And you can actually have some other options here as well. You can do DNS, you can give it a domain name, just like, you know, what do you want the domain name to be for this guy. You can specify the lease, you can do wins. In my case, I'll just do DNS. I'll give that 4222 range. And I want you to service the inside interface. I'm not going to care about the lease, I'm just going to leave it all at defaults. And similar to my DHCP, I want to enable him or turn that light switch on the inside network. Should be inside network, yeah. And I think that should be it. So let me do a show run. VLAN. Oh, by the way, guys, VLAN 1 here. All these other ports are by default are in VLAN 1. So, and let me see here. Yeah, I don't have a. My laptop's actually, or my PC actually connected to this ASA right now. So everybody else is in VLAN 1 by default. Any other VLANs you have to specifically specify. So 00 is going to be my outside interface. Let's see if I have anything here, but let's check everything else. I got my inside subnet. I got my access list allowing pings from the outside. I specify what kind of pings I want allowed in here. What am I forgetting here? The NAT command is fine. The ACL that binds the ACL to the outside interface. My HTTP settings, which this I can get rid of. This is just like a extra. Good idea to always review your config before you actually try to troubleshoot and see what's working, what's not working. DHCP. Okay. So that's fine. So we'll do a write. Let's save this guy. Oh, one thing that I forgot to mention, we're going to have to specify, which I don't think it is, the ASDM file that we're going to use for the GUI. Yeah, there's no ASDM, so I believe it's ASDM image. So we're going to say where this image is located off of Flash. And I want to do this image here. Let me do a slash. There you go. So that's another thing you have to do as well. You want to specify what bin file that you want to use for your ASA. You also got to make sure that the ASDM image that you have is compatible with your actual ASA code that you're running. I'll do it right. Let's see, did I get an IP? No, I didn't. That's making me a bit nervous because means I don't have public internet when I leave the house today to get into my PC. Another thing too with this though, if you do have, and something I may end up having to do, I will have to actually call my provider and tell them to clear their ARP table. or every so often for themselves they do a renew of the cache or the IP. So if you're having issues trying to pull an IP from your provider, you have to unfortunately call in their tech support and kind of walk them through, telling them to do a release renew IP on whatever modem that they have on site at your home, and that generally fixes the problem for me when I've had to call my provider and tell them to release renew the IP or clear the op cache, and I've always been able to get an IP. In the beginning, it was always a hassle getting this working. Many calls to Verizon, but it's been good so far. But now that I did a factory restart to do this video, I may end up having to call them again. But either way, let's wait till this guy boots up. Make sure if I can actually get an IP. The only difference is for people who actually have static IPs, you have it much easier. All you have to do is go into that. Does it go that far back? Yeah. So instead of putting this command in here for your VLAN 2 or whatever your outside VLAN is, just put in there the public IP address that you're going to be using. And just make sure you can pin your gateway. What version did you say it was running? Not running. I guess I finally picked up version 9. I had version 9 in the code here. It didn't pick it up until now. I'll just pause this, wait till it boots up. I don't want you guys to sit here and just watch this. And actually, I didn't wait too long. It was the same thing. Password. Wonder if... this is interesting. The password for version 9. And before it was always blank. Let me see what we got for default password for the ASA. Alright, so one thing that I did forgot to mention, guys, which kind of bit me a little bit in the behind, completely forgot about it, was actually set up a username, password, and enable password. So this is actually very similar to what we did with iOS. Username question mark Cisco, password Cisco. Enable password would be your enable password. We'll call it Cisco 2. So I actually kind of locked myself out of the ASA. So I just had to go in there and put this information in there, and that's that part done. That actually completes the setup. Only issue is that I will probably have to give a call to Verizon because I'm not getting an IP from them. This is kind of going to be a hassle because I have to call them and kind of fight with them a little bit. But at least, you know, I kind of showed you guys that's the basic setup, a rundown. Inside-outside interfaces, object networks, NAT, DHCP, the passwords, ACL, and as I mentioned, if you do have a public IP, this process will be pretty much done in this case. But if you're trying to do this with a DHCP, it generally requires a call to your provider to give you or to release an IP for you. So with that, if you guys have any questions about this configuration, feel free. You know, here's what I mentioned: my contact info. Shoot me a text, shoot me an email. I can show you. I can send you the show run of this, and that's it. That's kind of it for I'm gonna try and make a next video demoing out what I did during the last CCNA security meetup, which was our VPN point-to-point tunnel between our two ASAs that I had working the other day. I know in interest for time, I kind of rushed through it, but I do want to go over the process with you guys. So I'll make another mini video about that and post it on the meetup page. Anyhow, that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hey guys, just want to quickly add this to the end of that that ASA video. I gave a call to Verizon. They did a release renew on the IP address. You know, depending on who you get, it's generally a quick process. Took me like 5 minutes. So now, if I show you guys that in VLAN 2, same config as we had before, name if outside, IP address DHCP set route. So now if I do my show IP, I can see that I go ahead and I have my public IP from the outside using DHCP. So now I can go ahead and ping my 4222. Looks beautiful. And as I tried to show you guys before, now I do have in there that default route going out to my provider. In this case, it's 177.1, whereas before it said before gateway or last resort is not set. And in this case, now I'm seeing a gateway. So I just wanted to show you guys that after I did give a call to Verizon, that it is possible to set up. And as I mentioned, any questions, there's my contact info. Feel free to reach out to me. All right, thanks for watching.